A couple of questions that remain. Why didn't Todd Blanche get the job, the Attorney General job? Why is he only the acting Attorney General? And why does it look like the top job is going to go to a political hack who's the head of the EPA, former representative from Long Island, Lee Zeldin? What happened to Todd Blanche? Why isn't he liked or trusted by the Trump people? I think I have the answer to that. And the second is, what happens to Pam Bondi? Even though she's going off to some private job that she can't name somewhere in the private sector at some indeterminate time. Sounds like a made-up job, magical thinking job. Don't you? An imaginary job, if you will. That doesn't stop the committee overseeing the Epstein scandal from continuing to enforce its subpoena to have her come before Congress on the 14th of April. And Congress people like Representative Summer Lee out of the Pittsburgh area, Congressional District 12 in Pennsylvania, are demanding that she continue. It doesn't matter that she's the ex-head of the Attorney General's office. In fact, it sounds like she's going to be hanging around for the next month in transition in some capacity. So, and then what about the Florida bar? They said they weren't going to investigate her unethical behavior and conduct in violation of the rules of professional responsibility that I also swore an oath to, because she was in the federal government. Well, she's not in the federal government anymore. Let's cover it all right here on Legal AF. Take a minute and hit the free subscribe button. Let's start with Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche had been the number 2 in the Department of Justice. Now, he always wanted the top job. He let it be known in an interview that when he left his big cushy law firm, his big white shoe law firm, after leaving the U.S. Attorney's Office and opened up his own practice with now 3rd District Court of Appeals Judge, then Emil Bovee, it was to take on one client, Donald Trump, and to reverse his fortunes. He had several criminal cases against him. And when they had the interviewer of the New Yorker magazine asked him, why would you take such a job? He said, why wouldn't you? You know, if I can accomplish what people think is not accomplishable, there'll be a reward for that. Everybody assumed he wanted the Attorney General position, but he didn't get it. In the transition team, they leaked a organizational chart. The top of the chart for Attorney General was Judge Aileen Cannon. Interesting. They never denied it. Aileen Cannon has never acknowledged it. She certainly never recused herself or disqualified herself from any cases involving Donald Trump. So his name wasn't there. Second on the org chart, Todd Blanche, number 2. Now, the number 2 in the Department of Justice, the deputy AG, really runs the day-to-day operations. It's the administrative head. The face of it, of course, top prosecutor, if you will, is Pam Bondi, or had been, then Todd Blanche. So never Todd Blanche in the first slot. Even when they got rid of and they erased Aileen Cannon, who did they put in next? Remember Matt Gaetz, a congressman from Florida who had a little problem of allegations of child sex trafficking. And so he got dropped. And they still didn't go to Todd Blanche. They went to Pam Bondi, former impeachment manager for Donald Trump. Okay. What's the problem with Todd Blanche with Donald Trump? He doesn't really trust him. Todd Blanche has let it be known that he's a conservative, that he's a principled Republican. And there's just certain things he's not willing to do. And that's been the blame of MAGA and those closest to Donald Trump, that Blanche has stopped Pam Bondi from accomplishing Donald Trump's goals of prosecuting his political targets and critics like Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, or people in the left wing, you know, like Act Blue, or going after Barack Obama or John Brennan. And he even famously or infamously fired Ed Martin, the head of the Weaponization Committee. Not so sure now that Donald Trump was happy about that. So a lot of the blame in Trump's mind may go to Todd Blanche for a lot of these failures. The Epstein scandal and the cover-up related to it. I think he lays at the feet of more Todd Blanche than Pam Bondi, although she had to go. Then I dug deeper. And you see that there's this, in the MAGA web, there is this belief that Todd Blanche is really a Democrat working in sheep's clothing against Donald Trump's interests. In fact, when he took to the stage of the Conservative Political Action Committee, he tried to gin up some support and lead the audience in some sort of call and response about the fact that he's not a Democrat, but it backfired. Here's the clip.
Because when President Trump, you know, there's a memes out there suggesting I'm a Democrat. Everybody's supposed to say boo. Thank you. I'm not, and I haven't been. And if you're saying that I'm a Democrat, it's because you read the New York Times, which is a reflection of you.
I don't think there's too many people here reading the New York
I hope
Times.
not. So anyway, but I
It's
was
the only thing you've been wrong on so far.
no, but hopefully don't. Yeah, that's right.
That was just a week ago. But I saw something else because I stumbled across a couple of months ago in doing research for another hot take, a guy by the name of Peter Ticketon, who used to be Donald Trump's high school military academy roommate. They've been friends ever since. Peter Ticketon handles things for Donald Trump that nobody else wants to, like representing Tina Peters, the Mesa County, Colorado clerk, who is MAGA and friends with Mike Lindell and tried to turn over ballots and equipment to MAGA. And he represents a lot of interests like that. He's a big supporter of Donald Trump, and they've known each other since high school. And I caught in a couple of podcasts Ticketon throwing dirt on Todd Blanche and almost exonerating Pam Bondi. Here's a clip.
Unfortunately, we're not getting the cooperation that we need. The one that is running things now in the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi sits at the head of it, but the COO, so to speak, the person who actually runs it, is Todd Blanche. And Todd Blanche is failing on all measures. Because of him, we haven't had.
Thank you for that like. I really appreciate it.
Since
What
May.
does Sigma mean?
Because of him,
What does
he
Sigma?
wants the
What?
J6ers to not be compensated for all that we put them through.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Because
But
of
what's up,
him,
Sam?
we're not getting the things we need for Dominion machines, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this guy used to be, until January 4th, 2024, he was a Democrat, a registered Democrat. And then he represented Donald Trump on the Stormy Daniels case that any Democrat would have done the same job. But I don't know that this leopard ever changed its spots, because for some reason, everything that needs to be going forward in order to make Donald Trump's presidency work is being stalled.
I really appreciate it. I really do.
Man. And it's not because of ineptitude. This is a smart guy. He's a very capable guy. And it's not because he's not capable. It's because he's intentionally doing things the opposite of what Donald Trump has ordered to be done.
So at the time, and I said it to my Meidas people, I said, that's like odd. That's odd that because I doubt Ticketon does anything or says anything without Donald Trump's approval. And he said it more than once. So my next theory was Donald Trump was using Ticketon to destabilize Todd Blanche and to signal to Todd Blanche that his position in the kingdom was not secure. And now I've got my confirmation, because while he has apparently, according to reports, after a little bit of a screaming match, a little bit of a sob story in the White House, in the Oval Office, let Pam Bondi go, though he posted a relatively nice social media post about it, which she picked up on, about all sorts of things that she accomplished that she didn't accomplish. And now she's going off to a job that she won't disclose in the private sector. We don't know where and living where. But she's out of the government. When all that happened,
No
Donald Trump could have
justice.
appointed
She still
Todd
has a
Blanche at that
job.
moment and say,
Nothing.
he's also my nominee.
No
be the Attorney
justice
General. That's
whatsoever.
not where it's going. And I'm sure he's had a conversation with Todd Blanche around it. And I'm sure it's a loyalty test thing. Donald Trump likes people to be loyal to him and kiss his ring. And Todd Blanche has let it be known that he will not, quote, unquote, stoop that low onto certain things he's been requested to do in the Trump administration. You know who would stoop that low? Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin is a little-known representative congressperson from Long Island who ran for governor and lost against Governor Hochul in New York, who never really spent a substantive minute in private practice, certainly not in federal court, became the EPA administrator in the cabinet. He's the guy that kills all the laws that are there to protect your clean air and clean water in mind. And Lee Zeldin is a first-rate political hack, Trumper, MAGA all the way, and has been trying out for this big job, I guess, since he got in. And Donald Trump values loyalty. He goes through attorneys general like he's changing underwear. He had 4 or 5 in his first administration. He's on number 2 now. That's 7 attorney generals working for Donald Trump. And Lee Zeldin, step right up. You're next. The wheel has spun and it's landed on you. I feel like it's the price is right. It's the loyalty is right. So to answer Todd Blanche's question, how low would I stoop? Who would stoop lower? Lee Zeldin. He's not going to restore
But
any type
he's
of
beyond
credibility
silly.
to
He's
justice.
the
7,000
biggest
people
domestic
left
terrorist
are
in
not
American
going to
history.
reverse course. It'll all
Grifter,
head back to the
sexual
Department of Justice
assaulter,
because Louise
rapist.
Zeldin is now running it. It's not a reformation or rebuilding of the Department of Justice. It's more of the same. It's more destruction, weaponization, and going after people. It's just this guy is willing to do it. And whereas Todd Blanche put up some stop signs and wouldn't allow it to happen. So we'll have to see what to expect next. Now let me turn finally to Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi's not out of the woods, not by a long shot. She is out. Yes, she can't be impeached, but unless she negotiated for herself a pardon, which has not been announced, although Trump could do it at any time, she has a little problem called obstruction of justice and lying to Congress, which, because of the couple of times she's testified to Congress, and she could be prosecuted because those things happen within a 5-year statute.
Our justice system is
which
so
means we can go to
broken.
2031 or 2030 and prosecute.
It's not
this
even
when the Democrats
funny.
are in charge
Trump
of
should
Department of
not,
Justice.
any president should not be able to pardon
Trump could pardon her.
criminals. That's
It's
just
a tremendous amount of
ridiculous.
political capital waste on Pam Bondi, and he doesn't pardon everybody. It just
Every single issue
What about the
this
Florida
country
bar?
faces
Joe,
is
remember?
because we, the people,
we
do
have
not
rules of
stand
professional
up.
responsibility.
All
We
this
have a
corruption,
Constitution
shit.
of Florida and of the United
We
States.
can
as a
thank
whole.
Trump for one
And I
thing,
could reel off at least 6
exposing all the
different
corruption
rules of professional
in government
responsibility that Pam
and
Bondi violated.
in oligarchy.
Now, the Florida
Oligarchy
bar got a
means
bar
your
complaint
employer.
against Pam Bondi in the
Your
past.
employer wouldn't
And they
piss
said,
on you
well,
if
we're
you
not
were
going
on
to investigate
fire.
while she's still in the government, which is a made-up rule, their own making, which I never heard of it before in my life. And I've been a member of the Florida bar for over 30 years. But now the barrier is down. The excuse is gone. She's no longer part of the government. At least Kristi Noem got another federal paycheck pension. Pam Bondi's back to lobbying. She made tons of money as a lobbyist. She took a huge pay cut to come into the Trump administration. She's going to go back to lobbying the government for fees. We know that. She got the Florida bar. And then lastly, what about that sticky little thing called the subpoena to testify before the Oversight Committee on the 14th of April? According to Representative Summer, ex-something, ex-President Clinton, ex-First Lady Hillary Clinton, ex- in 6 or 8 months or whatever, then they are suffering from a serious magical thinking derangement syndrome. Not going to happen. And we're going to make sure it doesn't happen by continuing to platform this, talk about it here on Legal AF and on the Meidas Touch Network. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button. Help me to continue to grow this pro-democracy channel. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popak, and I got some.
Oh, what a doozy.
Welcome to a special edition of Legal AF in the aftermath of the turbulent career and now firing of Pam Bondi as Attorney General. Well, the misogynist in chief is at it again. What do you expect from somebody who's been a judge to be a sex abuser in the E. Jean Carroll case? Had the public outing of a hot take moment when he said he could grab a woman by her genitalia and get away with it because he's a celebrity. And more than 25 women have come out and said they too were sexually abused by Donald Trump. Of course, in an administration whose entire
they believe red
cabinet
just like
and
we
other
do.
Federal level positions
No
are
fucking
filled
celebrity.
primarily with men, the least diverse cabinet in over 100 years, with only 16% of them women. Of course, the first two thrown under the bus are women. Attorney General Pam Bondi and Department of Homeland Security Kristi Noem. I'm not here to defend either of them. They're both obscenely unqualified for the positions that they were put in. I used to refer to Pam Bondi as a crash test dummy. It's not about that. It's about why are they any more incompetent than Kash Patel at the FBI or Pete Hegseth, who undermines national security every day as the Secretary of defense, or RFK Jr., who undermines public health and puts us at risk at pandemics and epidemics we haven't seen ever. Why are they being considered to be fired? Why is everyone that I've got to do a hot take on, why are they women? I'm Michael Popak, you're here on Legal AF. Let's get down to what's now been referred to as a misogynistic administration, with a message to all women and those that support him through MAGA. You know, the women for Trump, you are replaceable. And even, for example, let's look at the replacements for Kristi Noem, Mark Wayne Mullen. That's a guy. Pam Bondi, for right now, it's Todd Blanche. 4 out of the 5 other names considered for the permanent job are also men. Tulsi Gabbard, they'll probably elevate John Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA. The 16% number of diverse candidates in Donald Trump's administration is dropping like a stone. And in New York to be a sex abuser, and according to Judge Kaplan, technically a rapist of E. Jean Carroll. And so, of course, he has a very strained relationship with women who he does not value. Interestingly enough, his 2 closest advisors, apparently, are Susie Wiles, chief of staff, and his wife, Melania, right? Used to be his daughter. Well, let's take her out of the equation. She's never around. He's going to them, for instance, to decide whether Stephen Miller should be thrown out. Why isn't Stephen Miller being thrown out? You know, if Donald Trump believes the #1 reason that he is failing in the polls, which is not true, is his migration and immigration policies, why isn't he firing the guy who's the architect of it? If he believes that tariffs have let him down and have put him in a bad spot with the United States Supreme Court and the American people and the economy, then why not fire the architect of them, Howard Lutnick, especially after he lied about his relationship and having lunch on the island with Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, there's just so many people, right? RFK Jr. lying to Senate confirmation panels and in his oversight committee hearings about him trying to take over and destroy our vaccine regime and requirements, inviting a public health disaster. Why isn't he gone? Kash Patel, not only was he investigated for his role at Jan 6th, but his use of taxpayer dollars to ferry his girlfriend around for all of her musical gigs, him partying overseas during the Olympics instead of trying to solve crime. Savannah Guthrie's mother still missing, announcing the wrong suspect. I mean, is anybody less competent for their job than Kash Patel, other than RFK Jr. and Pete Hegseth? Pete Hegseth, between the allegations of his drinking and his firing everybody who's competent. Here's if you like that one, you're gonna love what Congresswoman Ansari said. She said Noem and Bondi were both awful. and committed egregious impeachable offenses. But isn't it interesting that it's just the women getting fired? Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth each have a first term. He had 5 attorneys general, 5, including in the waiting. But she had no problem giving a 3-day interview. To
No idea what's going on with my microphones.
Where she threw people under the bus, including faint praise for Pam Bondi. You want to go back and read that Vanity Fair article, you can see Donald Trump's target list. Now, I just did a video that Tulsi Gabbard is also being, when Donald Trump starts polling his cabinet about whether somebody should live or die in his administration, you know, he's just waiting for the dust to settle about Pam Bondi, and then he's going to announce somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, or he's going to announce the replacement for her, the permanent replacement for her, and see how that plays out in the media. I mean, he's pretty cold-hearted when it comes to throwing women under the bus. I'm not sure he would have done the not dignified thing in how he fired and how he notified Pam Bondi to a man. How did he do it? Well, I reported a couple of days ago that Trump was going to be the first sitting president to ever attend a Supreme Court oral argument about birthright citizenship on April 1. And that's true. And what I didn't know at the time is that he rode over, we have the photo, he rode over the very short ride from the White House to the Supreme Court.
That's what a fucking idiot looks like.
And told her, talking about Cole, told her in the car on the ride over before he stepped into the oral argument that it was time for her to go. Pretty cold. And then sit next to her during the oral argument and then get up, being the first sitting president to ever stand, and get up and leave when the Supreme Court and its MAGA 6 rebuking him to his face, as long as you're here. But the fact
But traitor MAGA just cannot get through their fucking heads. Your king don't give a shit about
He was
you.
gonna ride over with him to a major event. Then he made her stick around. Talk about misogynist abuse. He made Pam Bondi stick around till the end of the night when he gave his Iran war speech. And then, you know, they're out doing this magical thinking thing. Oh, she's got a great new job, and she can't tell you what it is. And, you know, this sort of imaginary job, like an imaginary friend that Pam Bondi has. It's just this lack of dignity.
She's made plenty of fucking money.
Not how she abused the rule
She'll
of
be
law.
fine.
And I've already got videos up about how the Florida
No
bar
justice.
should now reopen her investigation into Pam Bondi. So again, I'm not here to praise her. I'm here to bury her. To paraphrase Julius Caesar, shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in luck. It's good to be right. Let me play you. I just had, and it's up right now, today, a great interview with Representative Summer Lee, who's been on top of this Pam Bondi issue from the get-go. In fact, March 17th, she drafted articles of impeachment against Pam Bondi. But Representative Lee, from the Pittsburgh area, the 12th district in Pennsylvania, something very interesting to observe in real time about this misogynistic quality. Play the clip. It's hard to tell with Donald Trump what is the nail in somebody's coffin when he decides to turn on them. I mean, her coffin must be gigantic, but do you think ultimately it was her role and complicity, and for Donald Trump, in his view, her failure to properly cover up the Epstein files and the child sex trafficking ring that he's connected to?
I mean, I said that didn't help. You know, I think she probably has a couple of things against her. A, she's a woman, right? He gets rid of women far quicker than he gets rid of incompetent men. What should be a message to the women in their sphere, right? Little grace for you, lots of grace for Kash Patel and, you know, Hegseth, those guys.
So we'll continue to follow who is the permanent replacement for Pam Bondi, who is the future replacement for Tulsi Gabbard, and we'll do a gender check to see who these people are. And I assure you that the diversity and gender equality numbers are not gonna get any better in the Trump administration. He doesn't value women that way. He doesn't honor women that way. You know, he puts them in roles, you know, like press secretary.
No, women
propagandist.
fucking
Anything
give
that's
him
close to, like,
awards.
Fox
It's
Friends anchor, he'll keep them around.
women
One of
giving
the top
a
4
rapist
cabinet positions,
awards and or
you
their
know,
medals.
Treasury,
It's
a guy.
fucking crazy.
State, a guy. Attorney General now, a guy. Defense, a guy. Commerce, a guy. Department of Health and Human Services, a guy. You know, need I go on? You know, the only female in the cabinet, I think, is the labor secretary, and she's embroiled in her own sex scandals about her husband, allegations that her husband sexually abused some of her staffers,
Oh
and
my
then she takes people to strip clubs and has a bar under her desk. Well, I don't know. So there you go on that. I'm going to continue to follow. Thanks for being here. Hit the free
Oh
subscribe
my
button.
god.
And as we continue to grow our pro-democracy channel. See you later today. I'm Michael Pope.
Jeez, all the pedos, sexual assault motherfuckers in the Republican Party is you cannot make it up. Holy shit.
My fellow Americans, the establishment, including the corporate media and many of my colleagues in Congress, want you to believe that you are powerless. They want you to believe that you cannot change the status quo, that because of their wealth and their influence, there is nothing you can do to combat them. But that is a lie. Throughout the history of our country, when Americans have stood up and fought for justice, they have prevailed. The founders of our country did it when they stood up to King George. The abolitionists did it when they ended slavery. The working class did it when they stood up to their bosses and formed unions. Time and time again, in difficult moments in American history, our people stood up, fought back, and won. They did it then, we can and will do it now.
Yeah, buddy.
There are a lot of people here. Thank you, Minnesota. And let me thank Indivisible, Move On, 5051, and all of the organizations that have made this great event possible. And thanks to the millions of Americans.
I don't want people thinking that's fucking live.
As Donald Trump is losing it, as Americans are demanding that the 25th Amendment be invoked to remove him from office. He clearly is physically and mentally rotting, and he is unable to serve in the position of the presidency. That is an understatement. And it's not just any American who's out there saying invoke the 25th Amendment. It's Donald Trump's own former lawyer, Ty Cobb. It's also the co-founder of the American Conservative magazine, Scott McConnell. They're saying invoke the 25th Amendment now. Here's Ty Cobb, the former White House special counsel, the former White House lawyer during the first Trump administration. He says Donald Trump is gone. He said this to my friend Jim Acosta during an interview that they just did. Here, play this clip.
You think he's just gone?
I think he's gone.
Yeah.
And he's right. I mean, just look at the speech that Donald Trump was just giving, where Donald Trump is just out of control. I mean, watch this.
Boom. Then another boom. And she was ready to go. She walked back to the corner. She said, I've never been hit like that.
Now back to Ty Cobb and Jim Acosta for a moment. Here, Ty Cobb says the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked, but Donald Trump's cabinet is just too cowardly, but it needs to be invoked. Here, play this clip.
It's not a surprise that we're in this much trouble. It's not a surprise that given the fact that the cabinet will not invoke the 25th Amendment for a man who's clearly insane. And this war highlights that, and these screeds that come out nightly, at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. or, whatever time Trump decides to vent, without oversight, it highlights the level of his insanity and depravity.
And throughout the day, Donald Trump's been posting things like this, proving why the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked. Photos of Davy Crockett and saying Davy Crockett, obviously a distant relative of Jasmine Crockett and a very high IQ frontiersman, would be proud of the legacy that he began long ago, especially Jasmine's great success as a politician from the great state of Texas. Like, what the hell is he talking about? He then posts, is Bruce Springsteen going to sue his plastic surgeon? Then earlier he said, bad and very boring singer Bruce Springsteen looks like a dried up prune. MAGA should boycott his overpriced concerts, which suck. Bruce Springsteen, you suck, he says. Save your hard-earned money, America. Bruce Springsteen sucks. Don't see his concerts. As America is in Donald Trump's catastrophic war in Iran, as people are suffering here, that's what he's posting right now. And Donald Trump's out there posting our military, the greatest and most powerful by far anywhere in the world.
Yep, another plane got shot down yesterday or today.
Bridges next, then electric power plants. New regime leadership knows what has to be done. It has to be done fast. Exclamation point. Donald J. Trump, he's out there just posting war crimes and crimes against humanity over and over again next to Davy Crockett and saying Bruce Springsteen sucks. And then he posts images over and over again of the ballroom in the East Wing of the White House, which has now been blocked by a federal judge. And then he posts a photo of himself by where the ballroom demolition site is. And he's like, the White House Ballroom Commission has voted 8-1 to allow me to continue building the ballroom. Donald, a federal court has blocked you from building that ballroom. What in the world are you talking about? Your own fake commission is not able to override what the federal judge says. I'm telling you, invoke the 25th Amendment. But let me go back to some of that Ty Cobb interview, though. This was one of the, I think, strongest portions, most powerful portions of the Jim Acosta interview with Ty Cobb, Donald Trump's former White House lawyer, where they talk about how Donald Trump's cognitive and physical deterioration has really impacted this war as well and turned it into an absolute catastrophe. Here, play this clip.
And he tells the allies, go get your own oil. That was the thing that he said today in this latest Truth Social post. Go in and just take it. If you're not going to help us take back the Strait of Hormuz. What has been your, take on just how unhinged he's been?
Well, I think my take has been pretty clear for months, if not over a year, that Trump historically and continuously has been guided exclusively by his narcissism, his whims, desires, impulses have been on full display. I mean, he is only about accumulating power, being adored. Signature on the U.S. dollar, the Trump illegally, the Trump name illegally on the Kennedy Center. I don't think it's, I don't think it's beyond his fantasies that he would like to replace Lincoln at Rushmore.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to see some just more and more crazy stuff, a la the, picture that you had of Trump's proposed library in Miami.
Yeah, what did you think of that when you saw it? We can show that again.
It's possible. It's just insane, of course, but that desire, he'd love to see that. And I think his narcissism, sadly now, beyond the revenge, beyond the assaults on the rule of law, Now it's really about branding, and branding in the extremes of the fact that this represents. But also in the context of war,
Fucking
you know,
makes
I
me
mean, he went
sick.
in without consulting any allies.
You want to put that big ass fucking plane in there? Oh my god!
Jets merely because they didn't get a phone call. It's
No
chaos.
fucking
I mean,
way.
And the military advised him against it. They explained the Strait of Hormuz problem. He didn't care. He believed that merely by exercising his power and puffing out his chest that, you know, Iran would surrender, that the regime would step down, that people would rise up, and, you know, there'd be democratic control. And now his position to the world is, hey, we broke it. I don't care. You fix it.
Now, more leaked White House video that the Meidas Touch Network got our hands on, showing the clear need to invoke the 25th Amendment now. Donald Trump's talking about being seduced by people who say nice things about him, even if they're bad people or stupid people. As long as they say nice things, Trump says that seduces him. He gets seduced by people saying nice things about him. What are we even watching here, right? 25th Amendment now. Invoke the 20, remove this guy. Remove this fool. Remove him. Here, play this clip.
My friend, great show. I love this guy. He's so nice to me. Every time I watch, God, I appreciate. You know, we're not supposed to be seduced that way, right? But I am. When somebody's nice to me, I love that person. Even if they're bad people, I couldn't care less. I'll fight to the end for them. So I appreciate it.
Now, even French President Emmanuel Macron has been calling Donald Trump out as just not a serious human being. French President Macron says the following to Trump: "We must be serious. And when we are serious, we do not say the opposite of what we said the day before. Perhaps we should not speak every day. We should simply calm things down and build lasting peace." Macron saying, stop speaking. You shouldn't be speaking every day. Your words are like a little petulant child. No offense to petulant, little lying petulant child. No offense to lying petulant child. And with all this taking place now, and Donald Trump's getting super paranoid, he's like firing his entire cabinet. First, he's focused on the women, because obviously we know Trump hates women, right? So he first fired Kristi Noem, and then we learned about Kristi Noem's husband into bimbification and everything that was going on there. And then he fired Pat Bondi, and then we believe he's going to be firing Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel. And then he also tends to fire Lori Chavez-DeRemer, perhaps Howard Lutnick, but you know, Trump will. My guess is that he fires more women first, because that's kind of the Trump thing right there. Dasha Burns says that he'll fire Howard Lutnick and basically blow up his entire cabinet. We'll wait to see that. But this also comes as there's a massive purge of all the top military generals, like right now, while America's at war, while the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked. You know, I think somebody said we've allowed a drunk millennial to take over the Department of Defense, who's getting completely owned right now by Iran, just like getting, like it's like Hegseth versus Iran, and like Hegseth's just getting completely outmaneuvered, and it's just so utterly embarrassing. But I mean, I think Hegseth realizes that the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked, but he's using it to consolidate his power. And so he's fired Army Chief of Staff General Randy George, who everybody says this guy was the most superb soldier and leader that was in our entire military. He's gone. Also, U.S. Army Chief, in addition to Randy George, you also had former Army Ranger General David M. Hodney, who leads the Army Transformation and Training Command. Also, Major General William Green Jr., the Chief of the Army's Chaplain Corps as well. So a mass purge of top military leaders, purge of his cabinet, utter paranoia, his former lawyers saying invoke the 25th Amendment. You saw it right there. And you saw the behavior that I showed you in those clips. Oh, and his approval's at an all-time low. UMass Amherst YouGov poll has his approval at 33%. CNN had it at 35%.
Even that is fucking crazy.
As Donald Trump's dark past, his disturbing and sick past is surfacing, he's doing something in conjunction with his termination of Pam Bondi in order to cover up his communications with Bondi, as well as his cover-up communications in general. And folks, this is something that is flying below the radar that we need to bring a lot more attention to. Obviously, the headline, of course, Pam Bondi is terminated. She botched the cover-up of the Epstein files. Donald Trump's involvement with Epstein became more and more obvious, and she was put there, I believe, to cover it up, and she failed at that. That's the big headline. But let's dig deeper to what also is happening and what we also learned in the past 24 hours. Here's the headline, but let's dig deeper. The Justice Department is now saying that a federal law enacted in the wake of the Watergate scandal that requires a president of the United States to preserve certain documents and turn them over to the National Archives at the end of his administration is unconstitutional. So Bondi's DOJ, bye-bye Bondi, it's now the Deputy Attorney General, who's now the Acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, who was Donald Trump's criminal defense attorney. So now the DOJ under Blanche, they are declaring the Presidential Records Act unconstitutional, and they're saying that Donald Trump and everybody in the White House will not be preserving their emails, their communications, their text messages, which all belong to we the people. They're supposed to preserve all of that. It gets archived, it belongs to us, so we can see what they were doing. The DOJ saying, we're not complying, it's unconstitutional, we're gonna destroy everything, right? You would think this would be a massive headline. Shout out to our friends at CREW, Citizens for Ethics. You've seen them before on the Legal AF channel and of course on the Meidas Touch Network channel. Here's how they describe it. This is a big deal and it's flying below the radar. Trump's DOJ just gave him a huge gift in the form of a legal opinion, which is an illegal opinion, declaring that the Presidential Records Act is unconstitutional. Let's be clear, that's nonsense. We'll break it down. So this right here was a report that was prepared by the DOJ. Let's take a look at it. Constitutionality of the Presidential Records Act. And it goes on to say, you have asked whether the Presidential Records Act of 1978 is constitutional. We conclude that it is not. When who has asked that? It's always been a constitutional thing. Who are you to play judge and jury over the Presidential Records Act and say it's unconstitutional? No, the law, which was enacted by Congress, says you must follow it, you crooks, you criminals, you traitors, you sick thugs covering up the Epstein files. Sorry, I get angry sometimes. It goes on to say, the Presidential Records Act is unconstitutional for two independent but interlocking reasons. One, it exceeds Congress's enumerated and implied powers, and it aggrandizes the legislative branch at the expense of the constitutional independence and autonomy of the executive. Every law enacted by Congress must be based on one or more of its powers enumerated in the Constitution. You want me to dispel this in less than 20 seconds? If Congress has the power of the purse, and Congress is responsible for authorizing payments for basically everything, and the president's job is to faithfully execute the laws passed by Congress, Congress can very easily pass a law and pass a funding mechanism as well that requires that the paperwork by the executive branch be preserved. It's a very basic concept, but the Trump regime saying that can't happen. The Citizens for Ethics goes on to explain, Congress passed the Presidential Records Act of 1978 after Watergate to establish that presidential records are the property of the American people, not individual presidents. In nearly 50 years, no president ever has claimed that it is unconstitutional. Trump has a long history with the Presidential Records Act, including multiple warnings from the National Archives that he was violating the law during his first term. And his handling of classified documents was so egregious that he was charged with several crimes. Remember, Donald Trump violated the Presidential Records Act, stole classified information during the first term, was criminally prosecuted for it. Now he's saying, oh, the Presidential Records Act isn't even a thing, it's unconstitutional. But now the Office of Legal Counsel, under the leadership of the Trump regime, is saying that Congress never had authority to pass the law in 1978 and doesn't have the ability to regulate these records. And again, this is consistent with Trump's escalating efforts to consolidate basically dictatorial power, what Trump's saying is illegal. In my opinion, it's criminal, and it's part of an effort to cover up his dark past. Because remember, how are the communications taking place between Donald Trump and Pam Bondi? Remember on Truth Social, Donald Trump's social media platform, when he demanded that prosecutions take place against James Comey and Letitia James and others? Remember that? And he said, you know, Pam, I need you to do this, this, and this. We learned that Donald Trump communicates with his cabinet via direct messages on Truth Social. Those would be subject to the Presidential Records Act. The text messages, the emails, the encrypted apps, all of that subject to the Presidential Records Act. You know, Donald Trump directly. This tells me that there were probably a lot of communications that way about the Epstein files, that Donald Trump wants all of those deleted and destroyed, in my opinion, right? Because under the Presidential Records Act, if he was directing Bondi through direct messages, we get to keep all of that stuff. And if there's deletions, that's criminal for Bondi, that's criminal for Trump. Those are crimes right there. And so I think that's why they're doing it right now as well. Now, one of the things I want to dig into as well is more of this cover-up obviously taking place in plain view. So you had Todd Blanche, who's now the acting attorney general. He went on state regime media, and even Jesse Waters was looking at Todd Blanche like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? Like, do you realize everybody knows that you and the DOJ are covering up a child sex trafficking ring by not releasing the Epstein files, and you failed to lose millions of records? Watch Todd Blanche basically, as part of this overall plan to cover up Donald Trump's dark past, say, you know what, the whole saga with the Epstein files is done now. The Epstein saga is over. We produced everything, and anything moving forward, we're not going to talk about Epstein ever again. Literally, that's what he says. Watch what Todd Blanche said. Here, play this clip.
Now, the Epstein files, you'd agree not handled well? No, and I don't, first of all, I have never heard President Trump say that the Attorney General was, that anything that happened to her had anything to do with the Epstein files. And so look, the Epstein files has been a saga that's lasted for the past year. And what happened when the President signed the Transparency Act is the Department of Justice has now released all the files with respect to the Epstein saga. And the Attorney General, Bondi, and I appeared in front of Congress voluntarily a couple weeks ago to answer any questions they had. We have made every single congressman, senator available to come and see any document, redacted, unredacted, that they want. And so I think that to the extent that the Epstein files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department, it should not be a part of anything going forward.
Now, Democratic Congress member and ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Robert Garcia, says this is a lie. About 50% of the files have been released, and per our subpoena, it is illegal to withhold them. Blanche may think it's over, but we are just getting started as they turned over all of the records. What are you talking about? More from Todd Blanche right here. Even Jesse Waters is like, so who was Epstein spying for? And Todd Blanche's like, oh, he's spying for nobody. And Jesse Waters is like, well, you think you're doing a good job releasing the Epstein files? And Todd Blanche's like, I think that people know that we've done a really good job. And even Jesse Waters, of all people, Jesse Waters, this is the one time Jesse Waters' mom is probably a little bit like, okay, can you be more of that, Jesse? But just a glimpse, she was like, that's just a glimpse she got right. I know she watches the Meidas touchdown, so I'll see what's up there. She's a big Meidas fan. In any event, here's what Jesse said to Todd Blanche. And like he's like, I don't think people believe anything you're saying. Here, play this clip.
It should not be a part of anything going forward. Okay, well, I mean, you've combed through these files, right?
This message is held for review.
Who was
Oh.
Epstein spying for? Look, everything, I don't know that he was spying for anybody. Nobody's ever said that. No? You don't think?
The big, beautiful obituary can't come soon enough. Hurry up and kick the
We
bucket.
don't have any evidence in the Epstein files that the FBI collected over 15 years that suggests that, Jesse. I don't know. I wasn't part of the original prosecution team, neither was Attorney General Bondi. And I can tell you this, there's only one president that's held Mr. Epstein accountable, and that's Donald J. Trump. During his first administration, that was the administration that prosecuted him, and during this administration, it's the administration that's been totally transparent and released all the files. And no matter how much criticism people want to make about the Epstein files, that is indisputable. It's undisputable that nobody talked about the Epstein files for 4 years during Biden, 4 years. And so when President Trump said, let's release the Epstein files, and the law was passed.
Yeah, we couldn't because dipshit Donald Duck was in the news every single fucking day.
I'm sure you
He couldn't get anything fucking done.
what people feel about that, but I want to move on.
And as part
Fucking
of this
lies,
plan for a
excuses.
cover-up, and
Fucking-
Trey Gowdy, former MAGA Republican Congress member or far right-wing Congress member, he's the Fox host now. And he's like, Pam Bondi, she had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. She was never on the island. I mean, she was literally the person covering it up. Here, play this clip.
She had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein.
Whoa.
She never visited the island. She's not the one that whiffed
That
on his
goofy-looking
previous
motherfucker.
prosecutions. The president really likes her personally. You don't have to be around him long to tell they have a very close relationship. I'm sorry it didn't work out because I like Pam, but Todd, if it is Todd will do a great job, and I know the president thinks highly of him.
More from Trey Gowdy here.
Wow, what a
And
fucking.
saying, the real victim in all of this? Pam Bondi was a victim. The victims were the victims, you idiot. The victims are the victims, the survivors, not Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi's not the victim. Really, that's what you're going with? I mean, do you see this cover-up just playing out? Here, play this clip.
Yeah, but it wasn't just her, Brett. I mean, how many different podcasters and other folks promised us all this information on Jeffrey Epstein? And those of us that actually were prosecutors were sitting there thinking you've had 3 opportunities. You had Florida, you had Maxwell before she was convicted, and you had Epstein before he killed himself. So where are the co-conspirators? The problem was whenever and it wasn't just Pam, there are other members of this administration that wrote checks with their mouths that the rest of their body couldn't cash. Now, you played a clip from somebody who's running for governor in South Carolina. I mean, why would you subpoena a Republican attorney general when all you have to do is what I did this morning, call her on the phone? So she was a victim a little bit of other people's ambition, like Nancy Mace, a victim a little bit of getting out over her skis. But let's be honest, when did we start releasing files, Brett? I mean, I haven't seen the Matt Gaetz file, have you? I haven't seen the John Benet Ramsey file. When did we start releasing files?
Who's president, you fucking idiot?
Scott McFarlane.
God damn. Oh,
leads the
stupid
chief
motherfucker.
correspondent at Meidas Touch Network in DC. What an incredible start Scott McFarlane's off to in the Meidas Touch Network. I mean, it's such an honor to have him be a part of this network. He interviewed Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin, and watch what Congressmember Raskin had to say. Let's play this clip.
What do you think is her legacy, or what she leaves behind with the department?
She leaves a legacy of an absolute sycophancy and invertebrate servitude to Donald Trump. And as I told her when she came before the committee, she was siding with the perpetrators and against the victims. In the Epstein case, in the events of Minneapolis, in January 6th, you name it. She's been on the absolute wrong side. And what a terrible way to squander your reputation as a lawyer and to essentially ruin a legal career that I understand was once promising.
Now here was Todd Blanche's post yesterday. He goes, Pam Bondi led this department with strength and conviction, and I'm grateful for her leadership and friendship. Thank you, President Trump, for the trust and opportunity for me to serve as acting Attorney General. We will continue backing the blue, enforcing the law, and doing everything in our power to keep Americans safe, to which Republican Congressmember Thomas Massey responded right away, "Congratulations, AG Blanche. Now you have 30 days to release the rest of the files before becoming criminally liable for failure to comply."
I gotta take a picture of that. That's fucking hilarious. These fucking idiots just. There are corners you can get backed into. Oh, we're on a fucking button.
With the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Also regarding Pam Bondi's deposition that's set to take place on April 14th, my friend Brian Tyler Cohen had the opportunity to interview Democratic Congressmember Garcia, who made it very clear that Pam Bondi's deposition is going to go forward. The subpoena to Pam Bondi for April 14th is for Pam Bondi, regardless of whether she's the Attorney General. You don't get to avoid your deposition by getting fired, Pam Bondi, and that's what you and Donald Trump thought. That ain't gonna happen. And I would love to see Democratic lawmakers and Republican lawmakers ask her questions about the method of communication, how she communicated with Donald Trump, whether it was through direct messages, on social media, how those communications actually took place. Anyway, here's what Brian Tyler Cohen was talking about with Congressmember Garcia. Play this clip.
House Oversight Committee still apply for April 14th?
It does apply. First, the subpoena we put in place does not have any mention of whether that she's AG or not. And the subpoena is for Pam Bondi. And so whether she is in a position or not, she legally is required to appear before the Oversight Committee on April the 14th, which is a date that Comer set for her to come. We've checked this all already out today with all the lawyers and the attorneys. And so she now has to come testify. She can come and do the right thing and finally be honest about actually what happened, why the cover-up, why 50% of the files have not been released. And look, she no longer has to work for Donald Trump. So let's actually get to the truth.
And then finally, you can see right here, Laura Ingraham of State Regime Media, kind of throwing Pam Bondi under the bus right here. This is all part of the cover-up plan. Kind of make her the fall person, blame her, try to delete the documents by declaring the Presidential Records Act unconstitutional. This is what Laura Ingraham had to say. Let's play this clip.
But perhaps the most scathing criticism of Bondi was about her handling of the Epstein files. During the campaign, the president made a clear promise to voters that those files would come out. And when he won, he handed that responsibility to Bondi.
One of the things
Oh,
that you
get
alluded
the
to,
fuck
this is
outta
what Donald Trump has
here.
talked about. The DOJ may be
That's
releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed.
Yeah.
Now, months later, the Justice Department and FBI said that no such list existed. Now, when White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles spoke to Vanity Fair last year about Bondi, the writing seemed to be on the wall. Wiles said she completely whiffed. First, she gave them binders full of nothingness, and then she said that the witness list or the client list was on her desk. There is no client list, and it sure as hell wasn't on her desk. In Washington parlance, the ever-loyal Pam Bondi had become a political liability. And now timing becomes part of the story as well, because Bondi was scheduled to sit for a House deposition in mid-April on the Epstein matter. The committee will still try to force her to appear.
And also, I just want to read for you what the Epstein survivors said in response to Pam Bondi being fired. Attorney General Pam Bondi failed us. Epstein survivors respond to dismissal of AG Pam Bondi. Following news of Attorney General Pam Bondi's dismissal, a coalition of survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse and trafficking network released the following statement. Attorney General Pam Bondi failed survivors. Under her leadership, the Department of Justice mishandled the release of the Epstein files, leaving millions of pages withheld from the public, while serious redaction errors exposed survivors' identities. These failures put survivors at risk, eroded trust, and compounded the trauma we have lived with for years. We came forward with courage and hope for justice, but under Attorney General Bondi's leadership, we were met with secrecy, mismanagement, and a failure to adequately protect our safety. Every misstep by the Department of Justice has reminded us that the system often protects abusers, not victims. As new leadership takes the helm at the Department of Justice, we stand ready to work together toward a more rigorous and transparent process moving forward. We are calling for meaningful transparency, accountability for past mistakes, and real protections for those who bravely come forward. Accountability should not depend on power, position, or influence. These are such courageous individuals, the Epstein survivors. Our heart goes out to all of them, especially what they've now heard Todd Blanche say. The cover-up not only continues, the cover-up gets even worse and more disgusting. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers, and thank you all so much for watching.
New Meidas merch. Head to store.meidas.
Holy shit.
We have gotten more photographs of members of Congress who are not in Washington, D.C. because they are on a 2-week spring break as thousands of federal workers continue to struggle because they haven't been paid for 6 weeks. The latest, Senator Cory Booker.
Senator Booker has left Jersey and he is loving life on the left coast. He is out here in LA. Got photos of him this morning, Thursday morning, at the London Hotel.
A very swanky hotel in LA, I might add.
Hotel, indeed. He and his wife enjoyed some breakfast. Looks like, based on their clothing, maybe they just completed a workout, or maybe they're going to work out.
So we know that he is in LA for a book signing. He has a book out, and he's going to be in
a book he's very proud of, by the way. He's apparently #2 on the
New York Times bestseller list.
Yeah.
And so he's going to appear in Santa Monica tomorrow night. So, you know, we're going international now. We showed you a picture yesterday of some congressmen in Scotland, in Edinburgh, Scotland, at the Edinburgh Castle.
Now,
we pointed out 3 or 4 of them.
Yes.
Now it turns out there are many, many more.
There are 30 members of Congress who are over there, and we are trying to identify more of them in the photo here, but yes, there is a large congressional delegate over there, which, by the way,
we pay for.
Yes.
You pay for.
You pay for those congressional delegations when they travel wherever around the world.
And the interesting thing is that historically, when there's been a shutdown, they've canceled these congressional delegations. They're called codals. This was not canceled.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, look, there's been some movement, and I don't know what.
Okay, it's all fucking TMZ. TMZ don't know shit. Well, that looks like it for me. I'm out of here. Later, people. Be out there.